Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call together to order this regular meeting of the King George County Board of Supervisors. We'd like to start off with an invocation by Mrs. Kupka and then the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Miller. So if you would all please stand.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us all together this evening to provide for the needs of our community. Please give us the wisdom and strength to make decisions that are in the best interest of our community and will allow our community to grow and prosper. We also ask for travel mercies for all who joined us here in person today, that everyone may make it home safely after the meeting. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Kupka. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you all. We'll start off with public comment. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If public comment relates to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing. So at this time, is anyone here for general public comment? Step right up, sir. And if you can state your name and address before you start, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Norford. I live at 7430 Little Chatterton Lane in King George. A few weeks ago, my wife mentioned in passing that she had paid our personal property tax. And I didn't think too much. And she said, well, gee, I think it seemed like it was awfully high to me. I didn't think any more about it until I received another tax notice from the American Honda, from whom we lease an automobile. And they included a copy of the tax bill that they had paid on our behalf. And I was looking at this, and it turns out that the 2019 Honda was assessed at $30,476, or roughly $7,000 above list price when I got it in when I leased it in 2019. Unbelievable. But I decided, well, that could be wrong. So, of course, I checked with the appropriate authorities here in the county, and they said, no, indeed, that's absolutely right. They also informed me that this board had made an arrangement where they had lowered the cost per hundred from $3.50 by 25 cents to $3.25, which we appreciated, but it didn't do much for that. On my other automobile that I drive, it was listed at $29,000. Also a 2019 automobile, which currently has a value of $24,500. You know, the governor, as you know, the legislature and the governor gave you all the authority to lower these car taxes for the community. And I don't know if anybody else here has enjoyed the same thing that I have, but I hope. Well, there's two things that bother me. One, the numbers are egregious. They're not realistic. And the source is a problem, but that's a source that probably is going to have to be addressed by the General Assembly. But this board of directors, board of supervisors rather, can lower this number and rebate to the citizens of this county this egregious amount. You got me paying $1,000 a year for a 2019 in tax for a 2019 Honda. And you know, in your heart, you know that's wrong. The other part of it is that I hope that this board of supervisors will not consider this windfall a pot of gold and go about spending all of the money, this tremendous amount of money from this overtaxation that is being left to you. I appreciate that. I don't know what you're going to do. You've got the authority to take care of it. I just don't know whether you'll have the will to do it.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Step right up.
If you permit me to hand something up to you briefly before I begin. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors. I'm Clark Lemming. I'm here on behalf of Green Energy Ventures, LLC. And I have the whole brain trust with me. They've come down from Northern Virginia. And if we have time, I'll introduce them. But I want to be sure I get to my message. I'm here to request a text amendment to your zoning ordinance. Green Ventures is a Virginia business specializing in the development of new energy sources, particularly green energy, data centers, and other regional and local infrastructure. And they'd be happy to tell you about all of the projects they have going on from the northern end of the state to the very southwestern end of the state. They have their contract purchaser for 352.5 acres on the north side of Route 3 in the western portion of the county. And we're going to file a zoning application seeking industrial zoning for those parcels. The project will consist of data centers, manufacturing facilities, and perhaps most importantly, a power generating facility. The issue with the power generating facility is that it's not anticipated, and that's necessary for these other uses. It's not anticipated anywhere in your zoning ordinance. So what I have done, and I hope this is a simple request, I have put together the bare bones materials that I think you need that include a definition of power plant, which is very generic, and set it up so that you can either include it as a by right use within your industrial district or use with a special exception, which you may want to consider. We give you somewhat more control. But we need right now there's no zoning district that permits a power plant. So we need the amendment. I think that the industrial district is the logical place to have the power plant designation. And I read to you the definition of the industrial district, defined as to recognize industrial uses which presently exist within the county and to provide an appropriate zoning district within which additional industrial and related uses may be provided. So we think that's a good fit. We would like to run this with the zoning application, but as you know, it requires an initiating resolution from the Board of Supervisors back to the Planning Commission just to get the process started. So that's the proposal, and we're here to answer questions. Green Ventures wants to do big things in the county, and we'll hope that you'll get us started. We also are going to need water, and we talked earlier with the Service Authority about that and presented some options for assisting the county with the provision of water and water treatment. So happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we'll be here if you want to talk. I know Mr. Collins talked with us before the meeting, but we're happy to discuss this further with you at your leisure, and just let us know. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lemming.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else for public comment? All right. Ms. Jordan.
Good evening, board and everyone. Claudette Jordan, president of the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, 11773 Big Bear Lane, Lusby, Maryland. And on behalf of the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, and we have several members in the house, they can all stand while I keep talking. I only have 3 minutes. We want to express our good and great appreciation for the progress that's being made right now with the board and the new advisory, Ralph Bunche Advisory Committee, and all the things that are just happening. The momentum is just really great. And we're looking forward to Hammers in the Air next month when the roof goes on. And then more grants so that we can deal with the inside, more grants so that we can do the landscaping and all the mold mitigation, sewage and well, and just make Ralph Bunche the wonderful venue that we know it can be, that will serve the entire county with all kinds of initiatives and fun and you name it. Maybe I'll have my 75th birthday party there, who knows? But we're just grateful. And thank you for everyone who's had their hand in it. Mr. Miller, your staff, Board of Supervisors, thank you so much. And we're with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Are you going to be there with a tool belt? Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing none. Mr. Dines, anybody online for public comment? Board, anybody get any correspondence that need to be read into? Nope.
Mr. Chair, we skipped the amendments to the agenda. So if we could just maybe circle back to that before we get to consent agenda, if there's nothing further for comment.
Yes, we did. I skipped right over it. I'm generally skipping over those things. I wanted to get to the public comment. So we'll close public comment and then we'll go back to amendments to the agenda. Mr. Miller, any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, sir. We need a second closed session item.
Okay.
So is the current text here that have the information that would be needed for that closed session? Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add a second closed session item as provided by staff.
Do we have to put what the closed session is or just a second closed session?
At the pleasure of the board, you can say what it is now, or when we do the closed session motion, we can say it then.
Or just leave it and then we'll read it when we go into closed session.
I just wanted to make sure before I seconded it that was right. So second.
All right, we have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Collins.
Ms. Lackey, I see the amendment, but I don't understand it. Applicable to county employees pursuant to code section 2.23711A8. I don't even know what that code is this time.
That's the closed meeting authorization to go into closed meeting to have consultation with the legal counsel for specific legal matters. The proposed basis for specific legal matters is to discuss King George County Code provisions applicable to county employees is the proposed second closed session item.
Code as in ordinance law or code as in ethics code, as in what kind of code?
That's proposed for further discussion in the closed meeting, but it does pertain to existing provisions of the King George County Code.
When did this come to light?
The closed session, the second closed session?
Yes.
Today.
I didn't get any correspondence in regards to what this means. I would like to say yes, but I don't know what I'm saying yes to. And it hadn't been put on the agenda for the public. I don't even know what it is that you put on the agenda for the public.
It's a closed session, Mr. Collins.
Well, they still have a right to know what the closed session is in regards to, not what was discussed.
It's a closed session. It's clearly stated right there that we just read.
Yeah, you can call the question.
Okay. We have a motion properly seconded. No more discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Chair votes aye, motion passes. Thank you. That's it for the amendments, Mr. Miller?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on. Reports of members of the board. Mrs. Bender.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everyone who came out tonight, Ralph Bunch and all the other smiling faces in the crowd. I missed your name, sir. You live on Chatterton Lane. The man who lives on Chatterton Lane. I understand we're having a work session. I forget the date. Now talking about maybe looking into other options, especially looking at a different valuation system for the vehicle personal taxes. I do not remember what date that is. If you want to come to the work session, Mr. Miller, do we have a date for that yet?
I do not believe we have one set at this point, but that is something that you all need to decide on the proposed ordinance for the personal property tax.
So just check out our website and you'll get updated, and you can come and give public comment at that meeting, or you can come up and get our information online and we can send you an email when that comes out, sir. Green Ventures, thank you once again for giving us some more information to digest and coming all the way down here. And I want to thank ahead of time Mr. Bushrod for making it up and visiting us today. Good things coming. And then my last thing is, as many know, I've been a big supporter of the King George Historical Society since I wandered into their museum over there in the old jail a long time ago in my effort to scan all the high school yearbooks for King George High School and Ralph Bunch, and I'm still missing 5 from the 50s for King George High School. I even found the original yearbook in 1939. And over my time there, I volunteered to help. The Historical Society is a little older in population, and I helped out Elizabeth Lee and Jean Graham and everybody else who wandered in there on Thursdays. But unfortunately, since 2020, quite a few of their members, especially Elizabeth Lee, have passed away. And with that kind of stuff fell by the wayside, and organizational paperwork, making sure they kept up with legal documents and making sure they were valid, and they didn't have a full board, and a lot of things have gone on in the last year, which led to the building being temporarily closed by the judge and the circuit court clerk, which is their right. It's a county building, but the courthouse grounds is managed by the judge and the court clerk. And so we had a meeting on August 10th. I'm sort of been the pseudo board liaison for years because I'm so interested in history. But they had a meeting, and they have an interim board that wants to pursue forward, bringing them into the 21st century and cleaning up their paperwork and making sure they have an audit and in compliance. And one of the things, they want to come with the county to get a formal lease agreement so that they can be in the building. They do not have one. It was a handshake agreement, as a lot of things were done in King George a long time ago. But in modern times, you need a little bit better paperwork. So all these things they would like to happen and see the museum opened again. But since it is a county building and it is run by the Board of Supervisors, everything, I'm going to ask the board, because I've been asked by the interim president to find out a definitive path for the Historical Society so that they can reopen their doors and come into compliance and move in a positive way forward. So I asked my colleagues to just give me some things that they would like to see, till the museum opens again, for the museum to open again. So if you want to send me anything or, think about it, call me and give me more information. But I promised them I would bring it in front of you today because they want to see the museum open sooner than later. But they do need to do some due diligence before, to get everything back in compliance. So I just want to bring that ahead. And then the one other thing they had asked of me is that they would like to formally have on their board somebody who's a representative from the Board of Supervisors to be working with them, just like I am on the Dahlgren Heritage Museum. There is a Board of Supervisors member as a liaison, and obviously I would like to volunteer for that since I'm the history person. So I just want to put that in everybody's wheelhouse to think about it, and please send me some information so that I can send it forward. All right, thank you. That was all
Thank you, Mrs. Bender. Mr. Granger.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'd like to first of all say thank you to everyone who came out to provide public comment and to participate in this meeting. So thank you, everyone. Mr. Norford, I do hear your concerns. I can tell you that the county didn't look at setting the rates in such a way to create a windfall. It was to meet the needs of the county's departments in order to fund them at a appropriate level so that we can receive the services we need. There have been increases in other localities in our region to, for instance, fire and rescue, sheriffs, schools, and being competitive, and so that we can retain employees has become very crucial. And so we need to be able to make sure that we do provide competitive compensation in order to make sure that we do staff all those departments, because they're very important departments that meet the welfare of our county. And it was a pretty significant amount of money that was required this year in order to meet those needs. So I can appreciate your concern. It does hit all of us. It's the five of us up here as well. We don't get away from it either. But those needs are very real, and there were needs that needed to be addressed. So, but thank you for coming out. Mr. Lemming and Green Energy Ventures, thank you so much for coming out, providing your recommendations for your text amendment. I will read through it and consider it. But I do appreciate you coming out and providing comment upon it, and your interest in our locality for possible business. So thank you for that. Ms. Jordan and all the Ralph Bunch Alumni Association, thank you so much for coming out and for the kind words. I think we have a great relationship, and I look forward to continued great relationship and moving forward and seeing Ralph Bunch become revitalized and get to that point where it's good. So I know we're not there yet, but thank you for the positives, the words and upbeat attitude. And I think we're all in that direction, and hopefully we'll be there soon. So thank you. And follow for your efforts as well as to helping to move forward in that direction. Other than that, on August 11th, we were supposed to have a Commonweal meeting. It did get canceled due to COVID issues. And so they have not set a new date. I will let my colleagues know when that does get set. August 15th, yesterday we had our CIP, Capital Improvements Project kickoff meeting. I'd like to say thank you to all the staff who came out to provide their requests and to understand the needs of this community. Just to kick off, so we'll figure out what projects will need to be funding for the needs of this community. And then lastly, I know at the last meeting we did discuss, I think Ms. Strauss, who I see in the second row, about Route 3 and the speed limits, and because we had added the no through truck traffic onto Route 206, and there was some concern about trucks being on Route 3 and the speeds. And Ms. Strauss was asking about trying to address that. So I did say I would reach out to Mr. Beal. Mr. Beal did get back to me. And what he said was that they weren't able to find a recent speed study when they looked back to 2016, that far back, and that they are going to do a speed sample and crash history to see if there's any justification to lower the speed limit. He'll let me know once we hear. So I will keep everyone appraised though as well. So that's what I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Ms. Kupka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I want to start by thanking everyone for joining us in person this evening. Mr. Norford, I too experienced a much higher personal property tax bill for my newest vehicle. It's a 2021 vehicle. And yeah, I received a number of concerns from citizens, and I started looking through the Code of Virginia to see what we actually can do with regard to taxation. And I did seek consensus from this board at prior meetings to develop a local ordinance to provide the possibility, this is just a possibility, to direct the county attorney to develop a local ordinance to have a mechanism to provide a refund to taxpayers in the event of a surplus after the closure of the fiscal year audit. I also sought consensus and received it from my colleagues to develop a local ordinance to prorate personal property tax by month, because currently we do not do that at all. And then also consensus to arrange a meeting to discuss, as previously stated, have a work session with the Commissioner of the Revenue and the Treasurer, because I know Ms. Binder and I discussed about how the values are assessed, and the Code of Virginia actually allows it to be done one of two ways. So I think you will find that there is political will on this board to take a good hard look at what your concerns are. And we just need to get that meeting going, and we'll see what we can accomplish working together. So, so thanks again for coming out. Mr. Lemming, thank you to you and your group again for coming out. You joined us for a similar comment at the Service Authority Board of Directors meeting. I just want to state for the record that the Service Authority Board of Directors did not take any public action on your request in the prior meeting. Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, Ms. Jordan, thank you all for coming out and showing your support tonight. And hopefully we have some more good developments on the horizon later on in the meeting. And then on to my actual report. On Friday, August 5th, I attended the King George County Schools Staff Kickoff Luncheon. Best wishes to staff and students for a successful school year. And thank you to Dr. Benson and Dr. Boyd for the invitation. On Wednesday, August 10th, I attended the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance Investor Update Zoom meeting. And later that day, the Ralph Bunche Advisory Committee meeting. On Monday, August 15th, attended the King George Department of Social Services Administrative Board meeting, and then attended the first CIP meeting last night as well. I want to thank staff for providing their needs to us at last night's meeting, and I want to thank the Planning Commission for their recommendations. Now I have an upcoming term expiration on the Economic Development Authority. I move to appoint Mr. Ian Fox to a new term upon the conclusion of his current term on September 30th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you. And I know there was a great deal of social media traffic last week regarding drivers passing stop school buses while unloading children. I did reach out to Sheriff Giles to relay their concerns, and I've asked him to inform us later during his constitutional officer's report of the measures his office is taking to ensure the safety of our children en route to school. And I have one last item, and I apologize to my colleagues. This came up yesterday, late yesterday. There is a copy of a letter on county letterhead to the United States draft letter to the United States Department of Transportation, Secretary of Transportation. So Ian Allis, the FAMPO administrator, reached out to me and Ms. Binder yesterday. He is requesting a letter of support from the locality for a George Washington Regional Commission Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan grant application. And so this would be George Washington Regional Commission applying for all 5 localities that it represents for grant funds to do first the study. They need to do the study, like a planning study. And then once you get that, then eventually you can apply for real money to try to improve your roads, to make road improvements. And I thought in light of the comments, particularly from Mrs. Strauss at the last meeting, sidewalks, bike paths, things like that could potentially be funded by this grant. We did talk about local match. He indicated that our portion, because again, it's apportioned based on our population, that King George's, if we get the grant, King George's local match for this would be about $1,900. So I wanted to see if there's approval from the board to have this letter of support forwarded to GWRC, and then they will consider it at their meeting next week, because my understanding is the grant deadline is September 15th, I believe, for the federal grant.
So this is just for the grant for the study?
This is just for the preliminary study, yes.
That would, if it was awarded, it would put us on the hook for $1,900 of local match?
That, yes.
Just that study?
For just that.
Anything beyond that would be another grant process that could have more local match?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good with it, especially for all the traffic that is in our community, is coming to our community. It's good to be part of this.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, Mr. Miller, you'll get back with Mr. Allis and forward that on. And then Ms. Binder and I, after the next GWRC, at our next meeting, will report back to you all what, hopefully all 5 localities are in. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mrs. Kupka. Mr. Collins.
Good evening and welcome everyone this evening to the meeting. It's good to see everyone. Not usually such a large crowd at the meeting. It's good to see everyone. Mr. Norfolk, you are my neighbor on Chatterton. I live the road next door to you. I'm sure you've already listened to Ms. Kupka in regards to some of the things that we're working on to make that burden less for all of us. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that. So right now in King George, the business, the revenue from industrial and business is not a lot. So that means that the homeowners pick up the tab for everything. So until we change that environment where we can have a bigger taxation base to help out our citizens, and we know the dump will close in 12 years, and that's artificially lowered our tax rate. So if you're in Spotsylvania, it's $1.08 or $1.38, and ours is a lot cheaper than that. So, but we hear you, we've heard everyone, and we do have the will to make things better. Sitting next to you is Mr. Lemming and his group, Mr. Taylor, in regards to some things that could maybe be helpful to lowering our tax base. So we'll look into these things and we'll consider them and do what's best for King George. We're always trying to do what's best for King George as far as businesses. We want to bring in clean business. We want to bring in ones that are environmental friendly. We want ones that have no traffic. We want ones that you can't see. So there's only so many of those around. And I think that those folks are that group. But anyhow, I did enjoy the school lunch with all the 605 employees, and it was very uplifting. There was a wonderful guest speaker. Ms. Jordan, so you said you wanted to have your 75th birthday at the Ralph Bunch. Well, you still got 40 years, so don't you want to do it quicker than that? Also, it's not very often that we get the presence of a Super Bowl NFL champion right here in front of us, who is King George's own son, Mr. Bushrod, traveled from Florida to be here this evening to give a presentation and be a part of a forward-thinking group and organization. And my wife says hello, and she loves you, and she always speaks about, and I've observed this myself, and I just want to say this in public, that, you know, you started out in King George playing football, you went to Towson State, you became famous, but you never left your home roots, and you've always been humble and been want to help the young people in our community, and it's so recognized, and we love you. And so thank you so much for coming here. The Ralph Bunch Society, that's not the society, the Ralph Bunch Association, thanks everyone for attending. I think you'll see some good things this evening, and you'll be excited to see that. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that I was a nay vote on the amendment, but I would like to not have surprises to where I don't know what I'm going into closed meeting for. So I would ask that there not have an afternoon change where I can have a little bit more information to make a decision for my the people I represent. The green energy folks, I talked to y'all for a few minutes. Very interesting. So we'll see where that goes. We have two constitutional officers. Sheriff Giles, again, you came a couple meetings ago and you're doing a lot of community service work to get the police and the children, which is important, together. I've observed that, and, you know, I ran against you, and one of the things I did was to talk about that, and you're doing exactly what I asked. So I guess I won't run against you next time. Ms. Hart's good to see you, and we look forward to hearing how we can make things better for the taxpayer citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Huh? I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, you stuck in on me. Thank you for coming. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Just wanted to thank everyone who came out. Ms. Norford, you've heard it all before. I mean, we're all in the same, the same boat with taxes. I have a couple of vehicles, and I was kind of scared to open my envelope, but I did. We're not a for-profit up here, for the county. We get just what we need to get the services for the community. So, like Mrs. Kupka said, if there's a way to lower it, we'll look into it. But we're all kind of in the same situation. So, like I said, it was a shock to everybody. Mr. Lemming, thanks for coming out. Thanks for bringing your crew. Got some interesting reading material to go over there. Hopefully, companies like that can come in and help lower the taxes on the rest of us and bring business into the county. So, and we will look into, we'll go over the information and look into, see what we want to do for your text amendment. Ms. Jordan, thanks for coming out, and the rest of the RBAA. I appreciate you all coming out. Seems like we got some good traction for the building over there, and it would be really cool to have a great community center that the whole community and the surrounding areas could enjoy. So I look forward to seeing you with your tool belt on. So for my report, ongoing talking about Verizon. I tried to make a phone call today and dropped it like 3 times. I finally had to reach out. I had no other avenues. I had to reach out to Senator Stewart, and he and I had a long conversation about it. And I think we even dropped the phone call at that point. So he knows all about it. I did send him a letter, and he is going to get his staff involved looking at, what's going on with Verizon's coverage here in the county. I talked to some folks that lived off of Windsor 218 in the Berry Wharf, Washington Mill area, and they were concerned about traffic like the rest of us are. There's a long passing zone right through a couple of the roads that are there. I did go out there and take some pictures of it, and spoke to Mr. Beal with VDOT. In reference, reviewing the passing zone, which is right there at the intersections of Washington Mill and Berry Wharf, that, and I guess Little Ferry as well, because they were concerned about the folks that live down in the subdivisions of Kitchen Point and everything where it's growing. Mr. Beal did reach out to their engineering department, and he sent me an email today saying they went back and did a review on all the traffic accidents that were in that area, and there were not enough for them to go ahead and change that passing zone. I did attend the CIP meeting last night as well, and thanks for staff and all the department heads for coming out and telling us what they need to keep going. And just wanted to remind everybody that school is open, like Mr. Collins said, and please watch out and please drive carefully with kids and school buses on the road. And that is all I have for my report. So we'll close out reports from members of the board and move on to the consent agenda.
Move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to county officials report. Mr. Jones.
Greetings, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Couple of quick notes from the Treasurer's Office. All of the first half taxes have been processed, and the revenue has been posted back to the June accounting period, so it can be reported in the FY22. Also, we will begin working on the second half billing early October, so hopefully that'll give constituents plenty enough time for the second half bills. Now, the treasury report. We began the month of July with a balance of $29,706,041.27. County took in $45,215,932.76. We dispersed $30,742,444.20, leaving a balance of $44,179,529.83. This total has not been reconciled to the bank account. However, that'll be done once the county audit is complete. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
That's good. Good evening.
Mr. Miller, if you can make sure that gets added into the minutes, please. Moving on, constitutional officers report. Sheriff Giles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I've been asked to come before the board tonight, along with the Commissioner of Revenue, to report on the state of the cigarette tax. But before I do that, and before I ask Deputy Simon to come up and to the podium and provide you with that report, I'd like to address a concern that was brought to my attention last week that Ms. Kupka alluded to. A post was made on social media referenced the school being in session, and there was a concern for the safety of the students at the bus stops throughout the county. Part of that message referred to a bus being passed by 4 vehicles on Dahlgren Road. I just would like to say that the radio system that we are requesting will allow the bus driver to call our dispatch center on the radio and could have possibly gotten those violators stopped rather than us finding out about it a day later. But I did want to let the board know that the sheriff's office is on top of that. Once we are notified of a problem area, we will post a deputy in that area to observe the stop and act as they see fit according to what they see. There have been some areas of concern from last year that we already have deputies sitting at and observing now. As a matter of fact, I've observed 2 of them last Friday and again last night and again this afternoon myself. We are also actively looking into bus stop cameras for the buses. But in order to do that, we have to write an ordinance and have to have an MOU with the school before we can get those buses get those cameras on the buses. We also have deputies that are sitting in the school zones to monitor the speeds in those zones. I can assure you that the safety of the students and the buses is a priority within the sheriff's office. And do you have any questions from me before I bring Deputy Simon up along with the commissioner for the tax report? Scott?
No, sir.
Good evening. So I'm going to give you a quick PowerPoint presentation on the cigarette tax here in King George. I will be honest with you, this is the shortest PowerPoint I have ever done in my entire life, so it will not be PowerPoint by death. All right, if you can, for just a moment, back up one slide. Take note of the cartons of cigarettes that look like they're open. I'll get to that in a little bit later on and let you know what I'm referencing to there. All right, next. All right, so you have 12 distributors out of your 28 stores here in the county. So every store goes through one of 12 distributors to get their cigarettes. And then those cigarettes get put on the shelf. Now, the distributors are the ones that actually put the stamps on the cigarettes and send them to the store. So let's say I own a corner store and I want to sell cigarettes. I call one of the 12 distributors. I say, hey, I need a case of cigarettes. One of those distributors will contact Commissioner of Revenue's office. They will get the stamps. They open up the cigarettes, they put them on, and then they ship them to me. So I never have to put them on. Once I get them, they go on the shelf and they are distributed. All right, next. All right, here's just a rundown of your 12 distributors. You can see Sheetz has their own, Wawa has their own, and so does Food Line. So that's basically where all the cigarettes are coming from here in the county through those 12 distributors. All right, next. All right, those are all your stores that are selling cigarettes. Some are selling more than others. I can tell you through our inspections that we go to the Sheetz in Dahlgren, and they have cigarettes literally everywhere. They're in the hallways, they're in the back rooms, they're in the employees' lounge, they're everywhere. You turn around and go down to the Shore store down in Fairview Beach, and she has 12 packs. That's it. There's just 12 packs. Travel back up to the Sheetz at 3 and 301, and they're slinging food out of that place left and right. Very little cigarettes. So it's kind of unusual when you have one store that's, selling a lot of cigarettes, and then you go up to another one and it's primarily food and gas and everything else. We did lose one store, which was a Paspatansy store, and then we ended up gaining 2 more, which was the new dollar store down in Paspatansy and the new store that's going up here by the King George Food Lion. We did inspect that. They didn't have any cigarettes in there yet. All right, next. All right, so what we did, or what I did, was try to put on a graph here to show you what the amount of money for the stamps was actually going out to the distributors. July 2021 is when this first kicked off. So you had a $420,000 stamp revenue come in for that. That was the stores all trying to get within compliance because this was going into effect. And then it kind of leveled off through there. Everybody kind of leveled off. December 2021 and January of 2022, basically the same amount. There is a difference in February 2022 and March of 2022, and I think that was because of the snowstorms we had. I think it was weather affected. And then, of course, as you can see, summer starts to go up through April, May, and June. So the monthly average is right around 174,000, a little over 174,000. All right, next. I broke this down again into separate years. So this is from July 1st until December 31st. That's and of course that 420,000 was your heavy influx right there for the trying to get into compliance. All right, next. All right, and this is from January 1 until June 30th. And as you can see, pretty much we're pretty much in step with the money that's coming in. All right, next. So this is what we've earned since this started back in July of 2021. All right, next. All right, so starting in July of 2021, the stores had 60 days to get into compliance. We gave them an extra 30 days. Ms. Hart, Ms. Price, and myself went out to these stores 90 days later after that July 1st date, and we found one store was in compliance. All right, written warnings were issued to everybody. The only store that was in compliance was Seabird's down in Dahlgren. Everybody else had cigarettes that were still on the shelf that didn't have stamps on them. We were hearing that some of the stores could not send the cigarettes back to the distributors because they wouldn't put them on. They were coming to commissioner's office, putting the stickers on themselves. They weren't staying. Food Lion was actually taking their cigarettes, putting the stamps on them, and then taking them over to the meat department, putting them in the shrink wrap machine and adhering them that way. So, I think they did what they could to get stamps on there. This process, I know there's just one date up there, but we had gone over this for probably 3 or 4 days. We went through each store. We had never been in them before. We looked around everywhere that they might be, you know, storing cigarettes or housing cigarettes or trailers, back rooms, anything else. And, you know, we had never been in these stores before, so we didn't know where they were all at in there. We went around again in February of 2022, and we found 20 out of 28 in compliance. 5 stores were issued summonses. All right, and I'll get to that in just a second. In April of 2022, we went around and we got a full compliance out of everybody. We didn't find anybody out of compliance, okay? And your 27 stores there is representative of us losing Pat's Patanzi store. We went around again in July 25th, again, 100% compliance in everybody. We didn't find any cigarettes that didn't have stamps on them. All right, next. Some of the pictures that you're seeing in here are actual pictures that we took on July 25th of the stores. So your enforcement came, first store we went into was Food Lion down in Dahlgren. We took 66 cartons. We issued a summons to the manager. We left there, we went straight over to the border store. We ended up pulling another 317 cartons plus another 224 packs of cigarettes out of there. At this point, we're like, okay, we need to hang on. We've got a pile of cigarettes. We've got to inventory them all. We've got to write all this stuff up in reports, and it's got to be put into evidence. So that day was pretty much done for us. We went out the next day. We ended up hitting Murphy's, 17 cartons, 39 packs. We issued a summons to the manager there. And then we hit Fastmart, where we ended up with 404 cartons. We ended up with 19 cases of cigarettes. All right, plus another 1,189 packs of cigarettes, which they couldn't all be the same. Right. They were all different. I never knew there were so many different cigarettes in this. But at any rate, we inventoried every single pack of cigarettes. All right, this took an enormous amount of time. All right, then we end up at the Tobacco Hut, 4 cartons and another 657 packs. And we issued 1 summons there. The ones that you see down at the bottom for the warning, the Tobacco Vape, Food Lion, and Sam's, they were all under that 6 carton rule that was in the handout for us. So a couple of packs, a couple of cartons here and there. It was nowhere near us, you know, seizing them. All right, next. All right, so complaint-based surveillance. I received a complaint from Sheriff Giles in reference to one of the stores down there in Dahlgren, possibly selling illegal cigarettes. Did 4 hours of surveillance on them. I didn't see anything overtly suspicious. And matter of fact, I only saw 3 people go in the store and come back out. A couple weeks later, I went back down there, did it again. 3.5 hours. Once I was done with that 3.5 hours, I did a spot inspection on them. Every cigarette pack that I found in the store all had stamps on them. So once I got done with that, I went around to a couple of the other stores and kind of did a spot inspection. Since I was down there in Dahlgren, didn't find anything. All right. Next. All right, so if you see these cartons that are all lined up in these back rooms back there, the top right-hand corner, you can see that the cartons have actually been opened up. And I know some of these pictures are a little bit blurry, a little bit far away, but when we go down there and do these inspections, once I see these cartons have been opened up, I know they've been through the distributor because the distributor opens them, stamps them all, and then puts it back. When they get to the store, they open them back up again and look at them and then stock them. So once we start seeing that, it's evident to us that they've been gone through at least twice, once by the distributor and once by the store themselves. Each and every store that we went into, we've gotten to know these managers and talk with them, And they are very, very aware that they don't know when we're coming, and they're not taking any cigarettes from any distributors that do not have any stamps on them. Okay? As a matter of fact, we've been told on a number of times, ain't a single pack of cigarettes coming in this store unless it's got a stamp on it, because they have no idea when we're coming. Next, or is that the last one? That was the last one. So I think the numbers weren't quite where you might have thought that they should be. Am I correct or not? Unless the stores start selling more cigarettes or we start getting more stores, you know, like I said, the Shore store down there, she had 12 packs. That was it. But the Sheets down in Dahlgren, they're loaded with them. So did that help any to kind of understand what we were, you know, doing with them? Good. All right. If there's anything else that you could think of that, you know, we could do more, by all means, please reach out. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Mrs. Hart, I do have one question for you. Do you have a number? So I guess it's from the 20th to the 20th. Do you have it for, I guess it would be last month, about how many cartons or packs were sold in the county?
No, we have no way of finding out how many packs are sold in the county.
Unless the store that
Well, we did. I don't know if the public did. If you could say that again.
Oh, we don't have a way of knowing how many cigarettes go out at each store unless each store gives us a summary report each month. But there's no way of us knowing that.
I thought on that paperwork there was how many cigarettes came in from the distributors and then how many cigarettes went out on their paperwork.
Right. So the distributor sends us a monthly report each month of what they sell to each store. But physically, each store, we don't know how much they sell. I mean, they could sell some of it or not all of it. It's not a you know, definite answer of how many go out each month. We don't have no way of knowing that.
The stores do not report to us.
Only the
how many.
distributors.
Only the distributor.
The distributors gives us a monthly report of how much stamps are affixed, which they send out to the stores. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're selling that many cigarettes out of the stores.
Do you have the numbers of how many came in from the distributors?
What's that, the stamps?
How many cartons or packs of cigarettes came in via those 12 wholesalers?
No, the distributor only gives us a monthly report of how many stamps are affixed, which means how many they give out. So we don't know how many. That's the only thing that we have. We don't know exactly a definite number. Does that make sense? Is that making sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, yes, but I thought in the ordinance they were going to report how many were coming in and how many were going out for like auditing purposes.
No.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I know that the ordinance was redone. Was that a part? Because I know that some things were changed in there. Was that changed or was that in there to begin with?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
But at least, I mean, thank you for that information.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Moving on from there. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Deputy Simon. Appreciate it. One of the shortest PowerPoints that we've seen. Thank you. You're right. Moving on to report of the county attorney, Mrs. Lackey.
So a couple quick items. The courthouse construction contract was fully executed on August 8th. And as I reported to the Service Authority Board of Directors, the Assistant County Attorney position has been filled. The new hire is starting on Monday, so you'll see a new face around. And the golf cart ordinance is being advertised for a public hearing at the September 6th meeting. And I've circulated a transient occupancy tax ordinance to the Commissioner of Revenue and to the Treasurer. There are legislative changes that take effect October 1st. So at the pleasure of the board, I'd like authority to go ahead and advertise that for one of the September meetings. Those changes are required by state code changes to transient occupancy.
Yes, please.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
What is the name of your new deputy?
Her name is Jessica Washington.
Jessica Washington. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question of the county attorney, please.
Sure.
Thank you. So, Ms. Lackey, previously, consensus of the board directed you to develop a draft abandoned school revitalization zone ordinance, and I believe you circulated that draft to us last week. And so the next step, would that require consensus for us to authorize or direct you to hold a public hearing on said ordinance?
Yes, we'd need to give public notices prior to adoption, so that draft has been circulated.
So is there consensus amongst my colleagues to move forward with a public hearing for that abandoned school revitalization zone ordinance? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Lackey.
All right, closing that out, we're going to move on to presentations and reports. 812, which is Ralph Bunch Advisory Committee report and presentation. Ms. Jordan.
Good evening once again. I spoke earlier on behalf of the Ralph Bunch Alumni Association, and now I'm speaking on behalf of Renee Parker, who is the chair of the Ralph Bunch Advisory Committee, who couldn't be here. And so, Mr. Stonehill, if you want me to speak on behalf of you and take the meeting, I'll do that too. It's exciting news, this brand new advisory committee. And we have put in place 4 subcommittees. And that's in order to just focus our effort and to just hit the ground running. And Ms. Kupka alluded to way back to rock and roll, and that's what we've been doing. The members of this committee are involved because of interest, expertise, and resources. So one of the very creative ideas that came about out of the marketing and communications committee was to work with the King George High School students to harness the power of social media using the experts themselves, that being the students. So last Friday, Ms. Cook, who chairs the Marketing and Communications Committee, and I spoke to Ms. Strauss's class, and they're excited to help us get things rocking and rolling. This Friday, we're going to lead them on a tour of the Ralph Bunch High School so they can see for themselves and kind of get a baseline for what it is and the history that they are going to be part of. And it's an opportunity for them to use their talents to begin collaborating and create and push content that the advisory committee is generating and all the social media accounts. I don't know anything about Canva, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, any of that stuff. You know, I'm just used to an old typewriter blind where you have the ribbon and you have to work on that. Well, not really. I can use a laptop because now you can backspace and change things and it has spell check, so that's a good thing. The members of the Capital Campaign Committee They're working to identify local and national donors. They will submit a grant application this week and begin working and finalizing to be ready for the turn of 2023. They developed a gift range chart and began developing a concept for a recognition wall. So the more you give, the higher up the wall you're going to be. The Business Plan Committee, they've been collaborating to create a document that encompasses the many uses of the building and the property while providing all the detailed information that the county needs to keep the project going and moving forward. The museum and historical committee members are working and making plans with the youth from King George High School and the University of Mary Washington to learn to curate and catalog and collect and work with all the artifacts that are spread all over King George County. And I learned this evening from some of the Ralph Bunche members here that they've been cleaning out and digging up things and finding things that they didn't know were there from family members. And so we will be doing our APB, All Points Bulletin, for a lot of the artifacts and documents. Items under discussion for the use of the future museum include a media table where you can just touch and move around and go from station to station, a green room, and Ms. Bender, she likes that idea where you think you're sitting right in the room and doing all these things. And where tourists can feel as though they're inside an actual classroom, and or be in a specific period of time, a reading area, and many virtual options and opportunities for technical or technological advances in the museum for tourist interest. We're excited and motivated to continue to work to create this space, especially to honor those that came before us, as well as to provide great opportunities for young and old alike. The winds of grace and mercy blow all the time. All we have to do is set our sails. And so, without further ado, I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Collins' accolades for the most important guy in the house tonight, Mr. Jermon Bushrod. Let him tell you the story and how he fits into all of this. And we're happy to have him. Mr. Bushrod.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Bushrod. I'm sure you wanted to get up and get away from your Giants fan next to you there.
Which one's the? We'll talk. We'll talk after this. Excuse me for 1 second. All right. Yes. First and foremost, thank you to the Board of Supervisors, county officials, for allowing me to be up here. To the Visualize and Rise reps, the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association, the Ralph Bunche Alumni Advisory Committee, and the rest of the public. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for coming. My name is Jermon Bushrod, born and raised here in King George County, graduated 2002. Like Mr. Collins said earlier, I went Towson University alumni and had the pleasure of playing in the NFL for 12 years, down in New Orleans for a total of 7, Chicago for 3, Miami for 2. It was a fun ride. It was a really great ride, and one that I'm extremely proud of. But I'm extremely grateful just for this community, the support, and honestly, my family, because there's been a lot of sacrifice, not just for me, but for my sister, for other individuals within our family as well, and. So before we get into that, I just had to, really show my appreciation for them because they really set the foundation for me as well. But yes, to kind of get into this, my name is Jermon Bushrod. I'm the founder and the president of Visualize and Rise Foundation, and I went through my mother's Facebook page and we dug up this picture. If you see, obviously you noticed the flag. That was given to me February 7th, 2010, after we had won the Super Bowl down in Miami.
it was really such a unique experience, not just for me, but I mean, listen, that flag made it all the way down here. I didn't have that with me, you know. So we had so many people from around King George there in the building in South Florida that night. And of course, it made it to me on the field. So I paraded it around, you know, because, you know, I'm just proud of where I'm from. And I'm just really, like I said earlier, really appreciative of the support I've gotten throughout this journey. But here it is, the Visualize and Rise Foundation. Our little tagline is, you know, building tomorrow's leaders today. The mission of the Visualize and Rise Foundation is to support youth sports and education programs to enable students and provide them with the necessary tools to facilitate them to reach their full potential and more. What we've been able to do in this community has been pretty special, has been pretty impactful, to be honest. And all of these, I believe that picture right in the middle is that might be all of our scholarship recipients from 1 year. But over the last 12 years, we've been able to raise over $1.1 million through our foundation. And we've done a great job of distributing that through various avenues. Like here it says, 300 scholarships awarded. 2/3 of those have gone to King George students. And those scholarships have been awarded from down in the Northern Neck region all the way up through Stafford, Spotsylvania, and Fredericksburg. We impacted communities in Virginia, Louisiana, Illinois, and Florida. We've been able to financially support some of King George athletics. And the list, the list is truly special. I mean, we've been doing toy drives alongside the YMCA for the last 3 years down at the Walmart because obviously I retired in 2019. So I had more time to come back to the area to do special things, but we've also done it in Louisiana, Illinois, and Florida as well. We've worked alongside social services to provide meals and Christmas wish list items to kids in need, and partner with the Live for the Cure Foundation to help out with their chromosome disorder research, and also being an avenue to help out some of those families in need, not just the individuals who are affected with this chromosome disorder, but the families, because, you know, that right there hit my family. We felt that, you know, because my third daughter had that, passed from that. And, you know, we're very fortunate to, one, have the time with her, but really be in a place that we were able to help others. Next slide. But as our foundation continues to grow, as we continue to grow and want to make more of an impact, we really have a vision to work alongside King George County and the Ralph Bunche Alumni Association to restore the historical landmark site of the Ralph Bunche High School into a thriving multi-use facility that will serve as a hub for individual and community growth in the public. Our mission would be to create a space where individuals within King George, Virginia, and surrounding counties can really fully immerse themselves throughout our well thought out programs, activities, activations, and experiences that we would be able to bring to the individuals who one day come through the doors. But we must honor the legacy and the individuals of Ralph Bunche High School and the rich history behind its role in the desegregation of Virginia's public schools. And I think it's ultimately we would be servants and become a resource to empower individuals to be the best versions of themselves. Next slide. I truly think there is power in collaboration, especially with a project like this. It's going to be a tall task, and for one of these entities to take on that task would be a big mountain to climb, but I think together we can go further. I believe all of us coming together, and you can see the name there in the middle of this Venn diagram, which I kind of went back to my elementary, middle school days and thought this would be the perfect graphic to put up on here, but the Ralph Bunche Visualize and Rise Center really has a nice ring to it, nice meaning. We believe that the keys to collaboration is, one, the timing is right. The timing is now. It's all about the relationships that we have, the relationships that we can build, and the relationships that we're going to be exposed to. I believe networking, putting all three entities and all of our brains and ideas together would be the best way to make something like this come to life. One would be the next key would be strategizing. The next key after that would be messaging. And I think the more minds that are motivated to make this happen, the more minds, the better. Next slide. This is the parks and facilities slide. You know, I was handed a plethora of data that I was able to use and really needed and really kind of help tell this story. You know, I rode by Cedar Brooks Park today. I love that. You know, that was my first time having an opportunity to go down there, and you know that put a smile on my face. And I think King George County has done a good job of supplying resources, activities, and space for the public. But just kind of going through the 2022 Parks and Rec needs assessment, the Ralph Bunche site had the lowest overall importance score within all the King George County parks and facilities. Only 13% of the surveyors even have visited Ralph Bunche. That's because obviously the school is not in condition to be used, and they only use it for soccer practice on the outside. I thought this was an interesting stat here at the bottom, that 80% of new residents indicate that access to high quality parks and recreation really kind of motivates them. It's an important factor when they're trying to find a place to live. So I believe that with updated and revamped facilities, more programs, resources, and facilities usage, the next, you know, when this thing comes to life, that needs assessment, Ralph Bunche will be at the top of that list. I believe this gives us an opportunity to bridge the gap in education, and obviously everything that's happened with COVID, and that's not just hit this area, but every area across the nation and the world as well. Education has fell. Point levels have fell. And you can see it, reading, math, and science, reading from pre-COVID to post-COVID across the state fell 9 points. King George fell 8. You can see African-American students have the lowest scores pre and post-COVID across the state and division. Math scores across the state fell 28 points. King George fell 33 points in that time being. Obviously now they're in school now, so those those education levels will continue to rise, but you know, we come in, they're going to need an extra push. You know, I think everybody needs that extra push, that extra person in your corner helping you get to where you want to go. But African American, multi-race, and Hispanics fell in the range from 39 to 45. Science, the same thing. The numbers are exactly the same. King George fell 31, while African American and Hispanics dropped at 28. Multi-race demographic dropped at 38. We do believe that utilizing and having King George County in the school, using their resources to identifying underperformers, having after-school tutors and programs, because now we're living in a world where ongoing skill development, you know, I don't know if we really live in a time where you can take 2-3 months off for summer and have that, what am I trying to say? You just always have to be having, you know, just continuing to learn, continuing to make yourself better. Because that's what the successful people are doing. Making sure that we are having after school and summer STEM programs on site, experience-based activities where we can put these kids in different spaces in different places so they can not just receive the information, but take them to different businesses, different organizations, so we can immerse them in that so they can see it, feel it, get motivated, you know. The one thing that's really stuck out to me in my life, you know, my parents would show me things, you know, we would go on long road trips, and sports have been so big to me in my life. And I can remember coming back from a cousin's graduation in Tuskegee, and I believe we stopped at the University of Auburn, and I snuck in a gate somewhere, and I just got on the field, and I was like, it would be awesome to play in something like this. Now I went to Towson, that was nowhere near that scale, but 2007 was a whole different, you know, experience for me in my life. But I think that we can start to change the habits of, you know, especially the younger, the elementary school, the younger, you know, demographics. We can start to mold them and create that correct mindset here moving forward. This is a space that we would love to utilize within the Ralph Bunche campus. If you can see here all the way to the left, we would love, because like I said, sports has been a major part of my life. But a Visualize and Rise training facility in the old auxiliary building, I had the opportunity to walk around it, walk through it, and That was it. That already looks like the outside of a training facility that I would have been in getting ready for training camp. You know, we would have space for dance and aerobic studio, have an opportunity to have turf, weight racks, dumbbells, free weights, everything that you would need to have high level training in group and individualized settings. And you can see right here, the picture all the way to the right in the middle, this is the addition that was put on to the Ralph Bunch School in the 50s. And for us to have a chance to utilize that bottom floor, because like Ms. Jordan said earlier, that museum and King George County administrative offices would occupy the original part of the school, and upstairs here would be occupied potentially by King George. So that bottom space would just really give us an opportunity to want to have a state-of-the-art kitchen in it, a meeting space and office space for Visualize and Rise so we can conduct our business and our meetings and have an opportunity to have a home. And then the right side of that is what kind of gets me excited, being able to have the access to technology, STEM, and just having a creative space that, you know, kids can come and hang out and figure out how to use a camera, how to use a video camera, how to maybe one day set up a podcast, and just having understanding by having people who already do it come back and show them how to use these different kinds of electronics. And this was a quote here taken out of the King George Parks and Rec Needs Assessment, that they are proposing a community center in fiscal year 2027 that will bring gymnastics facilities, party space, archery, teen space, senior space, exercise, and aerobic studio, along with department administrative offices. I believe we can check some of those off with the revampment of this space, of this campus. I believe this would be a hub for one, history, because you have to understand the history and the sacrifice that the individuals, why this school is there, how it got there, and it was for the betterment of individuals within this county. Well, now, when the day comes that we're able to complete this, it's going to be for the betterment of individuals in this county and surrounding counties. This will be first, a hub for history, art, passion, expression, growth, relationships, networking, hands-on and ongoing skill development. But I do believe when you walk into the doors, you will leave a better version of yourself. And here's my last slide here. One of the definitions to pivot. The pivot is one of my, I'm going to plug it. It's just one of my favorite podcasts that I like to watch now. You know, it just really it gives guys a space just to show individuals where they've been in life, how they've transitioned. And one of the definitions of pivot was to adapt or improve by adjusting or modifying. Ralph Bunch's glory gets restored. The sacrifices and the stories of the historical landmark will be told by adapting suitable technology to storytell within a museum space. I believe the Visualize and Rise Foundation adjusts its focus and mission by striving to make a tangible change through programs, activities, experiences, and activations. Right now, we feel like, and I'm very proud of the work we've done, but what we get, we give. Now we want to get, and we want to build, and we want to help build alongside motivated individuals. King George County adds more resources and facilities to the community, along with administrative offices. With improvements in and around Ralph Bunch campus, this space will thrive and be a staple of our area. And I myself, like I stated earlier, I enjoyed my NFL career. I had highs, I had lows. Super Bowl win, accolades, and other various awards. But to be a part of a journey of this magnitude with a team of motivated individuals upon completion would be the most impactful and meaningful in my life. That's all I have, and I'm really, truly looking forward to an opportunity to work alongside these two entities. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Bushrod.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I don't have any questions, just want to make a comment. Mr. Bushrod, you know I've coached in this community a very long time. Ashley back there, she's on the track team when I was a coach. I didn't coach her directly, but she was always a pleasure and watch her softball games. But one of the biggest things I want to mention, what makes me so excited, is as a coach, I believed in helping everyone. And when I was a coach, I didn't have a lot of access to the weight room because there was always a football team and baseball team in there. But there's a lot of athletes, if they just had the opportunity of a place to go to find mentors or a place that they could have access to the weight room or ways for good nutrition is really important, because just because you have the money to be on a travel team, there are other athletes out there that can find an opportunity to succeed if they're just given the opportunity. And your organization, and I've mentioned this to you before, is a good pathway to help provide that to students, because not everybody might make it to the NFL, the NBA, or the Olympic track athlete. But if we give them an opportunity to participate in a sport, and as a coach, that was my finest moment, we might give them the experience, the mentorship, the confidence to find a cure for cancer. And as a coach, that meant more to me than anything else. So thank you very much for coming and having that opportunity and to see good things for the youth of our community, and hopefully maybe for the seniors to help partner so we can have good mentors. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would like to enter a motion, if I may, Mr. Chair.
We go through, anybody else has any questions or anything?
So, Mr. Bushrod, thank you again for being here. My son was a recipient of your scholarship, and now he's done great things along with my other family members. So, you know, we know what you put back in this community, and we know what you can continue to put back in this community. And what you do put back. When you talked about bridging the gap, that's where my interest really lies, with our children. So we need to have our children more help with character building, and these activities build character with our young people.
Yes.
We need for our children to go somewhere where they're loved.
Yep.
So love conquers all. I know it's a corny statement, but it does conquer all. And when you invest, like you have teachers in this room that invest in students, you see that outcome many years down the road. So I am in 100% support of being involved in this. And thank you so much again.
Thank you. Wow.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll be very brief. Mr. Bushrod, I really appreciate you coming all the way up here to provide this presentation. I really appreciate the vision you have here, the opportunity to address, or not address, but to show the history and the impact that this had on really a national level of what's going on here. And then really like to see what's going on with the students and the kids, and your interest in being able to affect lives in a positive way. So I think this is a great opportunity to really have a great positive impact on this community. And I'm Mr. Collins. I think I'm excited about this opportunity very much so. And I really appreciate you being here. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. We're you know, you get butterflies thinking about, something like this happening. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't be here without my support system. But I went off to college and I never had NFL aspirations. I mean, I didn't think it was something that could happen. I didn't think it was even on the radar, and somebody, pulled me to the side, somebody very close to me, somebody that I still, confide in to this day. And I called before every single game just to kind of reset my focus, just because I understood what it take. And without that one conversation, I wouldn't be up here today. I wouldn't have had my career. And within that conversation, he taught me about visualizing and figuring out the vision that you want to have. And I told our people within Visualize and Rise last night. I said, I'm just a little piece of this puzzle, right? But it's everybody else. It's everybody else's sacrifice. Everybody else has jobs, kids, and they're all finding a way to help our mission. And now it's just the pie is much bigger. There's going to be more pieces, but I believe it's something truly special that I think can happen with the right mindset. It's going to be a journey, but I can't wait to do it. So thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Bushrod. Ms. Kupka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to start by thanking you again for joining us here in person this evening. And I want to let everyone know that during Mr. Bushrod's second tour with me of the building last month, he brought his family and I brought mine. And how I know you can do this is because you've already done it. The way that you mentored my children, that was the first time you ever met them. You didn't know them from Adam. How you mentored them, how you talked to them that night or that day, asked them about school, asked them about their athletics, asked them about their plans for college. That's just the type of person you are. You care. So I know you can do this. So thank you for that. So with that, I'll move to direct the county attorney to explore and bring back to the Board of Supervisors the legal instruments required to establish formal partnerships with Ralph Bunche Alumni Association and the Visualize and Rise Foundation with regard to Ralph Bunche High School.
Second.
We have a motion properly doubled seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion passes.
Oh, the picture. Mr. Chair, we want to take a picture with Mr. Bushrod for such a monumental occasion. And the folks from Visualize and Rise and Ralph Bunche.
I never got an autograph. If you're kind of short, you can do that.
Not tomorrow.
What's happening? Against who? Okay. You said you like husband? Was the principal of something the last 4 years? I know. That's it? Okay. I don't know.
All right, everyone, let's get on back on track here and get this meeting back in order. Next presentation of reports, I don't see him, but Mr. Lynch. I do not see him, so we will move on from there to our first action item, 8-14, Department of Finance transfer FY 2022-2023 ARPA funds for the purchase of new sheriff office patrol vehicles. Mrs. Hahn.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. At the budget work session that was held on March 2nd, 2022, the King George County Board of Supervisors approved the request to remove funding for 8 patrol vehicles in the amount of $400,000 from the operating budget and to fund the purchase with ARPA funds. To secure the vehicles, procurement has issued a purchase order against the sheriff's operating budget because there were vehicles that were available, and if we didn't secure it with that purchase order, we could have lost those vehicles. And so at this point, on August 2nd, 2022, we held our public hearing to accept the ARPA funds, and we appropriated those to a project line. And I would like to ask at this time for the board to authorize the county administrator to transfer $400,000 from the ARPA projects line to a general ledger line to be created for the sheriff's patrol vehicles.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
It's kind of tough to follow up that last presentation, huh? All right, moving along. 8-15, Department of Finance change order number 1 associated with the parking lot paving and milling project. Ms. Pitts.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here before you this evening in reference to a change order associated with the parking lot milling and paving project. During the paving process of the admin building parking lot, a section of the lot's soil underneath the existing pavement was found to be unsuitable to pave over. This required undercutting the area, hauling away the soil, and replacing with gravel that was compacted prior to paving. This was completed after direction from staff. With that, I'd request that you authorize the transfer of $4,608 from the KGES roof project construction line to the parking lot paving and milling project construction line, and also to authorize the county administrator to execute a change order with Finley Asphalt and Sealing to increase the contract price by $4,608.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you, Ms. Pitts. 816, Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Tourism Funding Applications, Sheets to Sheets Trail Run 2023. Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Sheets to Sheets Trail Run is a unique and fun 14-mile charity race between King George Middle School and the Dahlgren Sheets along the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail. It benefits local children in need through Sheets for the Kids and Ansley's Angels. It also benefits Friends of DRHT and Friends of Caledon. In just 5 years, the event has gone from a local meetup to a popular regional event. Last year, there were 300 runners from 7 states and the district registered for the event. The race drew participants from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, and the District of Columbia, and New York, and various areas of Virginia. This TAC grant focuses on new investments in areas of environmental safety, marketing outreach, to attract and protect visitors in King George County. The items included reusable collapsible water cups, professional traffic control on Route 3 and Camoran Road, expansion of advertising in Richmond and Pennsylvania areas, and a replacement of one sign that was damaged in last year's storm. Most items are one-time costs. Sheets to Sheets is requesting $4,900. After review, the TAC recommends that the BOS approve $4,900 funding for the Sheets to Sheets event. Staff agrees with TAC's recommendations.
Any questions for Mr. Minor?
I move to approve $4,900 in funding for the Sheets to Sheets event from the tourism funding line.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is the tourism funding application for the Rappahannock Valley Garden Club 2023 Garden Week. The 2023 Rappahannock Valley Garden Club Tour will host their annual Garden Week in April 2023. Visitors will tour inspired private landscapes, public gardens, and historic sites across Virginia, enjoying our beautiful state at the peak of spring. In addition, over 1,000 world-class floor arrangements created by Garden Club of Virginia members will enhance tour properties. This beloved statewide event will include 30 unique tours organized and hosted by 48 member clubs located from the foothills of the Shenandoah Valley all the way to the beaches of the Tidewater. This year, they are highlighting the Northern Neck Gardens. Both the King George Garden Club and the James Madison Garden Club are collaborating with the Rappahannock Valley Garden Club to support and promote this event. After review, the TAC recommends that the BOS approve $13,065 funding for the Rappahannock Valley Garden Club 2023 Garden Week. Staff agrees with TAC's recommendations. And one thing to add, Mr. Chair, before you take your vote and have your discussion, this is also almost a continuation of the 300th anniversary Garden Week that got canceled in 2020 due to COVID-19. So the Rappahannock Valley Garden Club approached the county in hopes of trying to get that event started back up and to celebrate King George in a way that they plan to in 2020. That's the only comment I have at this time. Thank you.
When was the last time they did that? I'm just trying to see. It was canceled in 2020. When was the last time they did it? 19? Sir, I was not on staff the last time they did it. I don't know if they've ever done it other than that, but no. 2020 was when it was canceled. I think that was the only time that they had planned an event like this for the county. Any questions for Mr. Minor?
I move to approve $13,065 in funding for the Rappahannock Valley Garden Club 2023 Garden Week from the tourism funding line.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion?
May I just add a comment? I just wanted to say I have been to a couple of the places there in Berry Plains, and it will be well worth the visit.
All right, we have a motion properly seconded with no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Minor.
Last item, grant application for DHCD Industrial Revitalization Fund for the Ralph Bunche High School. The Industrial Revitalization Fund program is targeted toward vacant and non-residential structures whose poor condition create physical and economic blight to the surrounding area where the structure is located. Ralph Bunche High School is an eligible property for this grant opportunity. The funds from the grant will continue to aid in the preservation efforts of the school. The staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution for the Economic Development Department to pursue a grant opportunity through the IRF fund through DHCD.
Any questions for Mr. Minor?
Mr. Chair, if I may, at the places at the dais, I've supplied a substitute resolution to what was provided in your agenda. The agenda identified the project as the Ralph Bunche Visualize and Rise Center, which we just heard a presentation on and we're very enthusiastic, I realize, but there is not yet an agreement for that particular use. So the substitute language, the main substance of the change is just to identify the end use of the project as the Ralph Bunche High School repurposing as a community center, museum, or education facility and compatible accessory uses. So that just broadens a little bit the possible uses of the building until we have final agreements in place. The grant deadline is August 19th, so we will not yet have the end use agreement in place before that date.
All right, I was just going to read the whole thing since it is different. If you all want me to run through it. It's a resolution of support, resolution authorizing submission of the Industrial Revitalization Fund application for the Ralph Bunche High School on behalf of the King George County Board of Supervisors. Whereas the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development is receiving a project submissions for grant funding for the American Rescue Plan Act and other sources of funding, and whereas $500,000 was previously awarded to the National Park Service for a preservation project for the Ralph Bunche High School rehabilitation, and King George County would benefit from additional funding for the rehabilitation of the Ralph Bunche High School. Now, therefore, let be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of King George County, Virginia, that a grant application in the amount of $1 million be submitted to the Industrial Revitalization Fund for the consideration of assistance in funding the rehabilitation and repurposing of the Ralph Bunche High School as a community center, museum, and/or an educational facility and compatible accessory uses, and be further resolved that the county administrator is hereby authorized to sign and submit appropriate documents for the submittal of this Industrial Revitalization Fund proposal. So we have a motion.
Question?
Mr. Collins?
So why can't we have the Ralph Bunche Visualize and Rise? I thought that was...
That doesn't preclude that from becoming reality. It's just that we don't yet have that agreement in place. If we receive the grant funding, then whatever our stated purpose is locked in for a 10-year period, or we have to return in whole or part the grant funds.
If I may, I think the way we kind of described it, it's kind of an unfortunate timing issue, is that if you had perhaps this presentation 2 weeks ago or whatever, you would have obviously been in a position to approve the action that you took tonight and then had it included in the grant. But I think that, as Ms. Lackey indicated, you kind of are, I guess if using I used this before, it's like Mr. Bushrod winning the Super Bowl before actually playing in the Super Bowl. So you now have an agreement, and I think that, as Ms. Lackey said, you can add that to the grant if it's approved, but you couldn't do that with the resolution tonight because it would have been presumptuous that you had this arrangement. If that makes sense.
With that, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and move adoption of the substitute resolution as presented this evening.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly second. If we could go down roll call vote, please.
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, moving on, discussion items. I don't see any. 820 County Administrator's Report. Mr. Miller.
So I've got a couple items on here, and I'm going to ask that 2 items that are not on the list, but I would like to ask if Mr. Minor could present to you all a summary of the meeting that he attended yesterday regarding the broadband project. I think it's very critical, obviously, to the concerns of a number of citizens in the community. And as you remember, they are planning on being here on the September 6th meeting, but I think Mr. Minor has a nice report to provide to you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I have a memo here that I provided Mr. Miller. I'm sure he can circulate it with the board when he finds time. So what I've done is I've laid out, and I wish I would have prepared a presentation for everyone, but I've laid out some timelines, some projections, status update on the middle and last mile infrastructure progress, as well as some important questions that we got answered at the meeting last night. So what I'm gonna do is just go over the important questions that I'm pretty sure a lot of the residents have. So question 1, when can King George residents expect service? The presentation last night, All Points Broadband put out that they can expect service between late Q3, quarter 3 of this year, and in quarter 4 of 2022. So the All Points Broadband Network is designed in a serviceable polygon-like area that directly connects to data centers in Ashburn and elsewhere in the United States that connect the public to the internet. Upon delivery and installation of the poles and fiber optic equipment, APB will be providing service as these serviceable areas are made ready. So essentially, if you are in a polygon that does not have the equipment or that last mile has not been installed yet, then you have to wait until they're able to get there. So you may come out to your power line and you will see the broadband on the line, but it's not lit yet. Nobody has contacted you to have it. Well, it may be because they're on back order for some type of fiber optic equipment that's just everybody's trying to get their hands on right now. Or somewhere in your polygon, there's a pole that needs to be replaced because it's not in a condition where you can hang that fiber on the line safely and to keep it at a high enough, keep it at a height to keep it from being clipped by some tractor equipment or just any equipment that could potentially go under. The next question is, what will it cost eligible residents for installation? So at the meeting last night, they stated there's $99 and they will provide a connection up to 2,000 feet from the power pole to the house. And it does not matter whether it's airdropped or underground. And why that's significant is, like I said, once they get the broadband to that pole, they have the ability to extend fiber to the home without having to amplify it. So if you think about a cable network, copper cable, it requires you to amplify it in order for you to provide that service to another home. With fiber optics, there's no concern with that. It's just the cost to pull the line to the next home. So that installation is $99 and it's only available this year when they offer it, or that first year that they offer it. So if they do not accept that offer, they won't be able to install under that price point. So let's just say a resident does not accept that offer the first time they come around. Well, next year, they're not going to be able to get that installation for $99. So it's critical, maybe even if they don't want to have the service, to at least pay to have that drop into their home. So that's just a recommendation. And then the next question is, can anyone sign up for the service? No. By law, communication companies cannot use state and federal dollars to compete with existing broadband companies. So if you are currently being serviced by a broadband provider, like a Breeze Line, like we have here in the county now, or like a Fios Verizon, you cannot sign up for this project. The next question is, who is the county's POC? I'm not going to say the public, but the county's POC. And that's Tom Innes. And he is their, he's essentially in charge of their strategic partnerships for the community. So moving forward, my office, as well as the county administrator's office, we will contact Tom Innes. So what is the cost of service? So the cost of service for 50 megabytes up and down, that's download and upload, is $59.99. For 100 megabytes, that's up and down, is $89.99. For 1,000 megabytes or a gigabit connection, that's $119.99. So additionally, residents who are eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP, can receive a $30 discount on their service. All Points Broadband will provide residents with the ability to check their eligibility with a third party through their internet website. So the next question I have is, how will residents know when service will be available? APB will contact residents 90 days in advance to let them know service is available and to sign up for one of the levels of service listed that I just listed in the question above. Residents can check their status on www.apbfiber.com. That new website is one of the most important points to the presentation tonight, or to the discussion tonight, because they have changed from fiber.allpointsbroadband.com to apbfiber.com, where you can check the status of your registration. So moving forward, King George residents should check that link for their status. That time, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions from the board, county administrator.
Any questions for Mr. Minor?
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Minor, when you mentioned the accessibility, so are they still going by the census tracts? So if, say, an example, if Breeze Line says that they serve a community, then you can't get the service?
Are they going by census tracts? They didn't show me anything last night in their presentation where they were using census tract data. It's really just based on their fielding agents and then what people report. So anybody could sign up for the service and say, yeah, of course I'm not receiving service from Breeze Line, when they actually maybe, or from any other provider. It doesn't have to be Breeze Line. But APB sends out their own fielding agents to verify that information to ensure that they're not being serviced. And a lot of times you can check just by looking at the existing power lines and where they are.
Well, why I ask that is because there are areas that are considered served, but they're not really served because the cost of entry to put a line down, it can be cost prohibitive. So I guess that's a question need to drill down on September 6th.
So the requirement by APB is that if they are serviceable, meaning they are either underserved or non-served, they're required to serve them. So if a resident is not being served or is underserved being they're on some satellite service or some service that is not providing 25 megabytes download and 3 megabytes upload, I believe is the requirement, then they should sign up and contact APB through that website link, or they can reach out to the county, my department, and we can try to get it fixed for them. This is something that Jimmy Carr, that the CEO, stressed at the presentation last night. If there's somebody who cannot be served, let us know now, because once they lock in or they finish their last mile, their last mile fiber, it's harder for them to extend that network later. They need to be able to do it now while funding's there and they have some flexibility with the network.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Minor, thank you. I appreciate you attending the meeting and providing the report. It really is informative and helpful. I did have a question. So we still have homes that are pretty far apart, and 2,000 feet is pretty far. It's like a third of a mile, roughly. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some homes that might stretch beyond that. Did they speak to what would it mean for those homes that might be further? Is there still entry opportunity at a higher cost?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So the way I understood it is if they have power to their property,
they're going to follow that line. If it's whether it's Northern Neck Electric Co-op or Dominion, our two service providers, they're going to follow that line. If they're 2,000 feet from the power line, then that's something we do have to look into. So if you know any residents like that, have them contact my office and I'll try to find some answers for them. Thank you.
And when you say power line, you mean above ground power line?
Yeah, above ground power line. Yeah, and if it goes under, if it's an underground line, it does not matter. They will follow the same power easement from where it comes off of the pole down to the ground to the house.
Tracking.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Ryder, I think Mrs. Bender, she asked the question, but I didn't get a clear answer. So, there's a road that goes off of 218 or 205 or whatever, and it's a mile long. The, existing companies run up and down 218 and they say, yes, you're serviceable, but it's going to cost you $60,000 for us to run a line down. I think that's what Mrs. Bender was getting at. And I didn't really get a clear answer on that.
So that clarifies it. Thank you, sir. So if the broadband company gave a resident the go away price, they should contact All Points Broadband and let them know that they did that, because they may qualify. I'm not sure how they qualify, but they should let the company know that they did receive a go away price, and then they will come out and see if they're eligible under the grant or under the funding guidelines that they were given by the federal and state government. So they can contact my office and I can help them get in touch with All Points Broadband.
Okay. And you're saying late Q3, Q4 to see some
traction,
substantial completion of the last mile.
Correct.
And yeah, I've been getting a lot of, inquiries about that because nobody has seen anything. So thank you for bringing that up and getting that information to us.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Minor.
The other item I'd just point out while I've got your attention is we only had 2 responses so far to the doodle pool for the CIP meeting. 3 now. Okay. I think Ms. Hahn just wanted to know, we did get Mr. Laux with Davenport indicated he could be available next Tuesday night, the 23rd. And I guess we'll just have to make sure this room is available, but he's prepared to talk about a number of the things that we talked about last night in the CIP session. So that's why I'm just mentioning it. So if you can respond to Ms. Hahn's doodle poll, then we can have a full commitment. Okay, the items that I have on here, I will email you the Berkeley Group status report. As you recall, Berkeley Group is obviously doing the zoning ordinance overhaul, and they are in the process of getting a number of those things accomplished on there. It's still planning on the spring of 23 for the complete revision. Let me see, I've got the actual, but it's a more detailed plan, and Ms. Hall has that available. So they are in the drafting phase of the project, and they will be circulating that information through Ms. Hall. And so we'll have that ready for you, and I'll forward that tomorrow to you all. Human Resources Director interviews. So this Thursday, we have 3 finalists. I'll be interviewing those folks, and the department heads are going to also get a chance to have some questions that they can ask as well. And so hopefully we'll have one to start for us, and we'll get that secured. Fairview Beach shore restoration. As you know, that project is wrapping up. It's a very important project for that neighborhood, and we are going to have a change order that will be on the final change order will be on the September 6th meeting that we'll be bringing forward to you. But for all intents and purposes, this project is wrapped up, and with the addition of some quantity adjustments that the county engineer will be bringing. As Ms. Lackey indicated, the new courthouse, the notice to proceed was issued on last Monday, the 8th. I know that Mr. Mason and some of the folks are going to start developing a plan for a public groundbreaking celebration that will obviously feature a lot of people, and including yourselves. And that will be sometime in the fall here coming up. And I will get with Mr. Mason on that as well. The fuel depot design is being finalized. As you remember, Chief Moody has been working on this. It's a critical issue, obviously. And they are in the process of wrapping up the design, and then the next step would be the putting a bid out for that. Appointment to the CPMT. We have a letter at your table, and we have Miss Kathleen Howard is being recommended by Miss Jacqueline Kobuchi. And I guess I would need a motion to do that.
I know Ms. Howard. I worked with her when I worked on school staff, and I will happily move to appoint Ms. Kathleen Howard to the King George CPMT as the primary representative for King George County Schools.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Okay, the next item is the to-do list, and we can obviously arrange a different manner in which you want to have it placed on the agenda, but I felt that this would be the best to start, would be as part of the county administrator's report. Essentially, this is still a work in progress from the standpoint of a listing of all of our capital projects and the updates. As you can see, the way I've organized it is administration and finance, and there are approximately 20 items that are on there, some of which include things like the hiring of the HR director, conducting the annual audit, the ordinance on the revisions to the golf cart ordinance, the personal property tax ordinance revisions. And the way it's organized, again, is the date originated. Some of these dates go back as far as the fall of 21, which would, like, for example, the financial system replacement, which approved in the CIP. And then it'll say originated by, and of course, then there's a description, and then assignments, and then the current status. And then we'll have obviously a date completion. There are a lot of things that we do, obviously, and they're more than probably on this list. But as I said, the capital projects, I realize that this list could get really large, and you want something that's an action item of your request for things. But obviously, we are doing everything that we can to continue the services and to bridge the gap between meetings and whatnot. And I do think that perhaps there's maybe a way that we could have this presented on a monthly basis, to do like the non-capital items on a monthly basis, and then perhaps every 2 months or something like that, have something that goes in for the capital items. Because when you list out the capital items, there's probably over 30 or more capital projects that we're working on, or in the state of, in some kind of state of completion. And so I just wanted to throw that out. But this is essentially what I'm proposing. I realize this may not be exactly perhaps the way that the school board did it, but we are obviously a bigger entity than the school board in the sense of our responsibility. And so we are going to have a lot more projects and a lot more activities that have either been approved by the board in a budget, or have been been directed by the board at a meeting to do some things. Obviously, we're going to add a couple of things to the list under administration and finance. We'll be adding a ordinance on the transient occupancy tax. We'll also add what Ms. Kupka had asked for the school revitalization ordinance. We'll also add the Ralph Bunch building formal partnership information. And then I will note that from last night, we also added the vehicle maintenance and the facility maintenance plan that you all asked for. And so they'll be, we'll be able to track those kind of things. So I'm certainly open to any kind of suggestions or directions. This is essentially what we've got right now.
Any questions for Mr. Miller?
May I ask something, Mr. Chair? Not necessarily a question for Mr. Miller, but with regard to the Safe Routes to School Walkabout mini grant application that we spoke about, I see that it's on here, and it's fast tracked for September because the first deadline is September. I just want to, so it's not for the routes, it's for which school you want to write for. So I'm asking, is there a consensus from the board? Do we want to direct staff, because it's going to help the grant writer in planning and starting to work on the application when she brings it to us? Can we identify which school? Do we want to have her look at King George Elementary School first, or do we want her to look at King George Middle School first?
If I may interrupt, I've actually assigned it to Mr. Clark because it would kind of dovetail on the Greenways Trail. And I think he's ready. So I don't believe Ms. Wilson will be involved in it because Mr. Clark is ready, and he indicated that he's going to reach out to Dr. Boyd to bring together some kind of group. They actually have to physically walk the area.
Yes, they do, but they don't do that until they get this grant. So
he explained that it was that they needed to do that before they put the grant together.
That's part of the walkabout program, is that you pick a school, you apply for the grant. If you get the walkabout mini grant, then they come to the school with the administrators, with stakeholders. They come on a day in the morning or in the afternoon, or maybe both, at dismissal time or entry time, and they walk around the school and see what the conditions are at the school, how the kids are getting to school, what things are safe, what things are not safe. So I'm thinking that for this to be successful in the fall, we need the board to let staff know, whether it's Mrs. Cook, or Mr. Clark. We just need to give direction to staff. Which school do we want staff to work on so that they can bring us a successful suggested application in September?
I know that Mr. Clark indicated when he was going to talk with Dr. Boyd that his suggestion was to look at the middle school as the possibility, because of not to say that the elementary school is of lesser importance. It's just that that's a really highly active area, and I think that's what he was thinking, that they would recommend that. And then his plan is to bring something to you on the 6th of September.
I would agree with that, especially since you have the Fast Mart in the Sheets in that generalized area. So a lot of students traverse there. So that would probably
we'll certainly take a direction, a formal direction, if that's what you want to do.
I'm fine with the middle school. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was understanding the process and that we needed to pick a school so that we could be successful. Thank you.
That's my report.
Any questions for Mr. Miller? Okay.
Before I make my motion for closed session, do I make both motions? Are we supposed to make one, come back out, and then make another, or are we making both at the same time?
Do both.
For purposes of efficiency, we could go ahead and do them both at the same time if we go ahead and give the language for both.
Okay, that'll work. All right, then I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meeting for discussion and consideration of the performance and salary of the county administrator pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, and for consultation with legal counsel about specific legal matters, namely provisions of the employment contract of the county administrator pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8. I invite the county administrator and county attorney as needed because they are both deemed necessary and or their presence will reasonably aid the board in the consideration of the topics to be discussed. And I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meeting for consultation with legal counsel about specific legal matters, namely provisions of the King George County Code applicable to county employees pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A8. I invite the county administrator and county attorney because they are deemed necessary and or their presence will reasonably aid the board in the consideration of topics to be discussed pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3712F.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We're in closed session. All right, Mr. Granger.
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certify by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All so certify, please.
So certify.
So certify.
Certify.
Chair so certifies. We are in open session.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the First Amendment to the employment agreement of the county administrator, which included the following changes. It's a 3% increase to salary, increase the severance for a termination other than for cause within 6 months of an election in which the majority of seats of the board are considered, deleting a redundancy regarding optional allowance for a vehicle for official use with delete a redundancy regarding optional allowance for a vehicle for official use was separately mentioned in 2 sections, and to clarify the use of an assigned county vehicle may only be used for de minimis personal use. And finally, to clarify that residency requirements require that King George County be the principal domicile sufficient to establish voting registration requirements and cities for its personal property taxation.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Nay.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
I move to adjourn until Tuesday, August 23rd at 6:30 p.m. in the...
There's no meeting in here? I mean, I would say here unless we have to change it, and we'll let you know.
In the boardroom.
Yes, in the boardroom. Sorry.
Second.
We have motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned.